It's time for the final race of the season in the Toyo Tires Porsche Championship. Now, the last race of any weekend is a reverse grid format, which in this case means that Kevin Ludford is starting on pole position in the Boxsters. But all of the action is happening here in the 924 class. The championship here is still to be wrapped up, and it's between Hugh PEART and Gavin JOHNSON. If Hugh finishes where he is now, in front of Gavin, Hugh will take the title. But Gavin's a fast racer. He's had fastest lap here in the previous two races this weekend. Let's see what happens. It's over.
In the 924 race, whoever beats the other of Hugh PEART and Gavin JOHNSON wins the title. It's as close as that. Ludford and Harris on the front row from Lee Bowden and Kevin Molyneux. Garry LAWRENCE and James Coleman are next from Rick Styron and Richard Avery. And then it's Ed Hayes alone, as there is not going to be a start for Adam Southgate. Incredibly, he is out of the weekend. It's going to be Peter Osgerby and John Jeffrey in front of Chris Valentine and Gary Campbell. Hugh PEART, David Jones and Gavin JOHNSON complete the field, and we're away and racing. So the first race this season without Adam Southgate is underway, and it's the reverse grid encounter as Ed Hayes tries to charge his way through from the back of the grid. Molyneux's going to cut through around the outside of Ludford. Styron's to his inside, and Garry LAWRENCE leads the way. Ed Hayes dives up the inside of Ludford. James Coleman making a fast start as well. Richard Avery, we ride on board with him as he goes round the outside of Matthew Harris onto the grass. Richard, careful! 2 wins so far, but I think a third is not going to happen now. Lawrence in the lead. Second is Styron. Third is Kevin Molyneux. James Coleman battling away with Ed Hayes round the outside and takes 4th position. Hayes in 5th place. Lee Bowden is there in 6th position. This is going to seem a bittersweet race for a lot of people, with Adam Southgate, the new champion, having to sit out the final race of the season. Also, Toby Smales having to sit out as well with mechanical problems of his own. But here comes a move from James Coleman up the inside of Molyneux and Lawrence. He's going to take them both. What a move from James Coleman. Just when you forget how strong Coleman has been this year, he pulls off a move like that. Molyneux now 3rd, Hayes in 4th as he sweeps past Garry LAWRENCE. Lawrence might be able to outbrake him into the chicane though, as out in front it is Rick Styron who leads. Then it is 2nd place for Coleman. 3rd is Molyneux, 4th is Hayes, 5th is Garry LAWRENCE. What an epic first lap here at Donington, and they've got another 14 or so to go. And let's not forget that this being the reverse grid race, they're going to have to work very hard indeed. Sadly, it's not a mandatory pit stop race for the last round of the championship, but hopefully that gimmick is going to come back again next year. It was a really good asset to the championship, really spiced up the races at Rockingham, the very last time we've ever gone to Rockingham, of course. Ed Hayes trying to get the move on Molyneux. Here he comes down through the crane of curves. Hayes is going to commit. Up on the inside. They both drift out wide. Hayes nearly loses it. Tries to get the car saved. Molyneux gets him back. And Ed Hayes has lost the position to Molyneux and is about to lose another one to Garry LAWRENCE. Straight through on the inside. You're never going to get a sweeter pass on Ed Hayes than that, Garry. Absolutely brilliant. So Garry LAWRENCE flies up into 4th position once again, chasing down our race leaders. Here we go again to the 924s. The battle is raging, and it's Gavin JOHNSON trying to make his way past on the inside of the 142 of John Jeffrey, while Hugh PEART leads the way in front of the man in the lead, David Jones. Now, this is a big ask for Gavin JOHNSON. If it finishes like this on drop scores, Hugh PEART will be the champion because JOHNSON is down in 4th. Gavin JOHNSON needs to dig deep here and fight his way back. He's not had the best of starts. Chris Valentine there in behind him. So now JOHNSON needs to make a push to get past the 142 of John Jeffrey, but he needs to really find some speed now. Gavin JOHNSON down to the braking zone for the chicane. You've got to do it now, Gavin. You've got to do it now. He does so into the chicane. Nicely done from Gavin JOHNSON. So the PDC man's up to 3rd, but he needs to close up on the 2 guys in front and overtake Hugh PEART. Whoever beats the other wins the championship. David Jones is now in front of Hugh PEART. Now that's important because Peart was in front of him. David Jones has now got through. So all Gavin Johnson needs to do effectively is sit in where he is and he will be the champion, because Hugh PEART needs to win this race to tie it up. If Jones wins, then it's going to be the championship one for Gavin Johnson. Garry LAWRENCE leading Ed Hayes in their battle up the hill. So Garry LAWRENCE running in front of Ed Hayes after Hayes' little slip up of the old hairpin on lap 2. So a really exciting run this has been. And a massive thanks to Alex Stocker for loaning him the machinery. Ed Hayes obviously having good fun in this season finale. Maybe he'll want to do a full season again and reclaim the title he won last season. Adam Southgate sat in the pits watching, has already taken from him in 2018. Past the grandstands on the main straight. It is a really good run for Ed Hayes in behind Garry LAWRENCE. But look at that, David Jones has not only got past Hugh PEART, but he's dropping him. And that is good news for Gavin Johnson, because if Jones finishes ahead of Hugh PEART, then he will be, Gavin Johnson will be champion. Hugh PEART has to win this race to stand any chance of taking the title. So it's going to be an interesting battle forward. Hugh PEART obviously starting from P5 in the 924s ahead of Johnson in P7. That would have been enough if it had stayed like that for PEART to win the title. But if Johnson is just one place back from Hugh PEART, if it stays like this on dropped scores, it would be Johnson on 297 and Hugh PEART on 276.5. So this would be enough as far as Gavin Johnson is concerned to get the job done. He probably doesn't know that yet, but he's just got to keep pushing and keep pushing like crazy. So through comes Hugh PEART. Second position is not quite going to be enough to make him the champion. He's going to have to keep pushing. Second position, not a bad result, but he wants to win, and David Jones is in front of him at the moment. We're on board with Hugh PEART. Wharfside Electrical Wholesalers back in the championship, of course. We saw the sticker there on the left-hand side of the dashboard. As Hugh PEART continues to push, trying to get the most as he can out onto the back straight. So now this is all about Hugh PEART trying to close back in on David Jones and take the win away from him. So can Hugh PEART get the title wrapped up here? He's got to try and focus in on David Jones. If he can't and he ends up second, then Gavin Johnson behind him in third will lift the title in the same way that his stablemate Pip Hammond did 12 months ago in almost exactly the same car, certainly engineered by the same people. There is Campbell in third position, actually. I thought Johnson had made it through to third. Not quite, but he's got to get there. Now, if it finishes like this, actually, I thought Johnson had already got through to third, but Campbell is in his way. Now, if Campbell finishes third and Johnson finishes fourth, I'm fairly sure that that is not quite enough either. But Johnson is going to try and get his way through, regardless of that. Campbell's had a very good start to his Toyo Tires Porsche Championship campaign here this weekend, having some nice battles in race 1 with Chris Valentine. A solid effort to finish in P4 of the race in race 2. So Campbell has had 2 fourth-place finishes from his first 2 races in the Toyo Tires Porsche Championship in the Gulf colours. Very appropriate being a Porsche Championship. But Gavin Johnson is closing him down. If he can get into third position, well, that is championship well and truly sewn up. But Hugh PEART needs to win the race effectively to make that happen. Both drivers needing to get into the podium paying positions to get a decent score. But Gavin Johnson in particular needing to be there, because if he's not, then that's enough for Hugh PEART to snatch away the title. So Gavin Johnson needing to get the moves on Gary Campbell. This will be the moment he's looking for. If he passes Gary Campbell, it will be job done in the championship fight. So down the straight into the Goddard's S's. Campbell running well. In terms of lap times, though, Gary Campbell is currently looking at the 129s compared to Gavin Johnson, who's in the 127s. So I don't think it's really too much of an ask. But Gavin Johnson will still want to do this carefully. The team will be telling him, you know, if you pass Gary Campbell, you've got the job done, mate. They'll be doing that via the pit wall. They'll have talked through all the permutations back in the paddock of how he can win this title. Back at the Boxsters, Ed Hayes is still in behind Garry LAWRENCE with Kevin Molyneux in the mix as well as they continue to tussle away for position. Kevin Molyneux trying to get away. Third position is up for grabs in the last race of the season. Not again! Ed Hayes 3 races out of 3. More mechanical problems. Oh, well, that's definitely a frustrating end to the weekend for Ed Hayes. And I wonder if this is going to put him off coming back next year. Maybe I'll get my own car, actually, Alex. Well, big problems, unfortunately, there for Ed Hayes. Ruined his afternoon in what could have been a really exciting end to the campaign for the 2017 champion. At the end of it all, he scores nothing this weekend. Here comes Gavin Johnson. This is the moment of truth. This is where he will seal the championship if he gets past Garry Campbell. Down the back straight, up to the S's. Campbell disappears from view on the onboard camera, and that's because he's out braking him into the Goddard's S's. Gavin Johnson is now in championship winning position. 3rd place will do it, especially with Hugh PEART in 2nd place. Garry Campbell's going to try and come back at him. It's up to Gavin Johnson now to hold him at bay. So let's see if this is going to be enough for Garry Campbell to come back on the inside. He's going to try. Gavin Johnson's going to let him go. He's got time to get him back if he needs to. So Gavin Johnson lets Garry Campbell back through. Gavin Johnson playing the sensible game here. He's going to have to wait for another opportunity to come by. But this is going to be a tough fight. 3rd position is what Gavin Johnson wants from this race. He needs to get there again on Garry Campbell. Campbell pushing hard through the old hairpin. David Jones leads the way and is stretching out the advantage over Hugh PEART in 2nd. PEART in 2nd isn't bad, but if Gavin Johnson gets into 3rd place, it won't be enough for PEART to be champion. Gavin Johnson just needs to keep pushing here to get back on terms with Garry Campbell. One car, effectively, stands between himself and wrapping up the 924 championship title. Up the hill, into the right-hander for Coppice. Garry Campbell, the back end steps out a little bit. Gavin Johnson's got plenty of time to do this. He doesn't need to panic. Is that spots of rain on the dash? Wouldn't be too surprising if it was. It is a little bit spots of rain on the windscreen. So now Gavin Johnson up the inside of Garry Campbell again. Is this going to be job done this time? It is. He gets through again into 3rd position, into championship winning mode once more. But a lap ago, this was exactly what happened. So this time, is Garry Campbell going to stay back? The answer is yes. Garry Campbell's not going to get an opportunity to get him back again. And here comes Rick Styron. Rick Styron is our race leader, of course, in front of James Coleman. So those two battling away for position. I think Kevin Ludford has had to pull out of the race now as well. So he joins Ed Hayes on the sidelines, sadly. Kevin Ludford out of the race as Rick Styron gets back to the old days, the good old days when he was champion in 2016, charges his way past the 924s of first Garry Campbell, and then... he's got a problem! Rick Styron's got a problem! Well, it looked like he'd got a problem, and now slots himself back in behind Gavin Johnson. So Rick Styron in trouble. Well, it looked like he was, and now he's gone straight past around the outside. James Coleman suddenly realised Rick Styron's in trouble. Well, a big moment there for Rick Styron. His hand was in the air. He had a problem. I wonder if he had a gearbox issue. But whatever it is, Rick Styron suddenly had a massive slow-up out of the old hairpin and dropped back into the clutches of James Coleman. So that race is definitely not done yet. A really exciting run as down the back straight again comes Gavin Johnson in 3rd position in the 924s. It looks like the Boxster race is going to go to the death here between Rick Styron and James Coleman. Meanwhile, 3rd position is going to be duelled out between Kevin Molyneux and Garry Lawrence. It's Dolly Molly there in 3rd position at the moment in front of Garry Lawrence, but not for long. Here comes Lawrence alongside him. Is he going to try and box him in using the two 924s? He sweeps by. Kevin Molyneux still there to the inside. Richard Avery there in 5th position as well. Gavin Johnson and Garry Campbell just trying to stay out of trouble. Johnson drifts wide and Molyneux is down to 4th behind Garry Lawrence. What a move from Lawrence in the 93. Now we're on board with Richard Avery. Dropping down through the Craner curves. Bit of a slide there from Gavin Johnson and also too from Garry Campbell as Richard Avery knits his way up the inside. No problem there. Now darts around to get round the outside of Gavin Johnson. That is the speed difference between the 924 and the Porsche Boxster. But Gavin Johnson in 3rd position in the class is where he needs to be. He doesn't need to panic at this point. It's all going well from his point of view. So now the racing continues. Now Richard Avery's been released by the 924s. If Garry Lawrence is holding up Kevin Molyneux to a certain extent, we may get a nice little tasty battle at the end of the race for third position. But there's only, I think, 7 of these cars left now in the Boxster Brigade. Styron leading, Coleman second. Lawrence is now third in front of Molyneux and Avery. Then it is Bowden in 6th. Harris is 7th, and that's it from the Boxsters. The rest of them have all been depleted one way or another. Mechanical problems aplenty. Ed Hayes out. Adam Southgate, new champion, out. Big damage from his race 2 problems, and it looked like it was not repairable, so he had to sit out the last race of the season. And of course we had losses for Porter, for Toby Smales, and also for Gary Goodwin. They all dropped out of the race in race 1. Smales dropped out in race 2, I should say. Porter and Goodwin dropped out in race 1, and they didn't restart the following races after their retirements. Gavin Johnson down through the Craner curves. This man is leading the race, David Jones, and that's fine as far as Gavin Johnson is concerned. He doesn't care. All he wants to do is win the title, and David Jones winning the race will help him secure that. Hugh PEART in second position. It looks good for the moment. And all David Jones has to do is keep motoring on to the checkered flag. Hugh PEART in second position, running a good race. And Rick Styron is on course to take the victory in the Porsche Boxster Brigade. This man, David Jones, is on course to take the 924 race victory. So no problem at all. The Porsche Boxsters are chasing him. There you go, they are closing up. So Rick Styron leads the way. Hugh PEART gets out of the way of James Coleman as they come through. And David Jones, I think, is again only just going to get lapped by Rick Styron before this race concludes. I think we've got 2 laps to go. So Rick Styron is going to lap. I think it's 2 laps to go with the time we've got left. 20-minute races, of course. So when the time runs down, the checkered flag comes out. There's no bonus laps or anything on the top of it. It's basically however many laps you run, and that's it. In 20 minutes. We've had 15-lap races in both of the previous races, I believe. So I think it's going to be 15 laps in length again. But obviously, Rick Styron is going to want to make sure he does that without forfeiting the race victory to James Coleman. He had a mechanical problem of some kind earlier on as they lap. David Jones laps Osgoby. Not Osgoby. Yeah, it is Peter Osgoby. My apologies. And Coleman laps him. It's all business as usual in the Porsche Boxster Championship as there's cars moving around all over the place. Rick Styron in front of James Coleman. I think he's going to be okay now after that very nasty scare up at the old hairpin where we thought his race might be run, but somehow he manages to get away with that. And after 2 wins for Richard Avery, it's another comeback kid, Rick Styron, who leads the way in the 3rd and final race of the weekend and the last race of the season. He comes through, gives a bit of a flash of the lights to Chris Valentine. Actually, we may have time for 2. I thought we had time for only 1 more lap, but I think there's time enough for Rick Styron to come through and get another couple of laps in the board. Richard Avery still running nicely there to try and close up on Garry Lawrence and Kevin Molyneux, and he's catching them rather rapidly. Richard Avery still pushing. Looks like some moisture on the windscreen. Now, whether that is rain or whether that's from another car, I'm not sure. But Rick Styron still leads the race regardless. James Coleman in 2nd from Lawrence, Molyneux, Avery in 5th place, then Bowden and Harris. And of course we've got Jones, PEART, Johnson, Gary Campbell, John Jeffrey, Chris Valentine and Peter Osgoby in that order in the 924 category. So if it stays like this, Gavin Johnson is going to seal the 924 championship. Rick Styron is going to take the last win of the season if he stays where he is, and it's good to see him do so on his comeback. He made a one-off guest appearance last year in the 924 category, if you remember, and that was the only time all season, certainly up until that point, that Pip Hammond had not finished in the top 3 when Styron beat him to the flag in both of the races at Donington Park and then never won a race again that year. But Rick Styron is back in the Porsche Boxsters, and it's very fitting that the 2016 champion is on the course to get a victory. James Coleman in there behind him. That's David Jones waving the 3rd position battle through. Go by, I don't want to lose my victory. Go on, get through. All 3 of you, get out of the way. I don't want to deal with you. So Lawrence goes through, Molyneux goes through, and so too does Avery. That's David Jones having lapped Chris Valentine. And then we've got PEART, who has lapped Peter Osgoby. PEART in 2nd position, and that looks like where he'll finish the championship as well. It's been a good battle for Hugh PEART this year. He's worked very hard throughout, but it's not quite going to be enough to seal the title. In terms of fastest laps, well, David Jones has the fastest lap in the Porsche Boxsters with a 1:26.985. That's the only sub-127 lap from the entirety of the 924 class. So very impressive lap there indeed from our race leader, David Jones. He did that about 7 laps ago. Richard AVERY is the fastest man on track in the Porsche Boxster Brigade. He did a 1:19.057. Fastest lap of the race from our race leader, Richard Styrin, is a 1:19.4. We're on board with Hugh PEART. His fastest lap has actually been a 1:27.4, I believe, although he is pushing very hard now. And this is looking likely to be his fastest lap of the race, the way his first sector is going. The second sector looks pretty quick as well, so Hugh PEART might beat his own personal best lap towards the end of the race. We tend to see that from time to time, the fastest laps in the 924s. Once you get a bit of clean track in front of you and you've been passed by a couple of the Porsche Boxsters, you're able to follow in the draft and end up getting a much faster lap. So Hugh PEART is running around at the second position point in the 924s. Looks like he's going to put a lap on Chris Valentine before the race is done as he comes through and over the line. And looking back, that is Lee Bowden, who is in 6th position on the road, of course, and 6th position in the Porsche Boxster class. He's about 40 seconds back from Rick Styrin as Hugh PEART is going to sweep up the inside of Valentine. I underestimated the time slightly. I was looking at the wrong screen. Apologies for that. They are going to go into the last lap next time by. There is David Jones as he comes through. No, my apologies, we are on the last lap. I thought, trying to look out how much time we've got left, but there is Rick Styrin. Rick Styrin is going to come through and finish the job after a brilliant end to his weekend. Maybe we'll see him back again. He said he'd retired. Hogwash. He's still as quick as ever as Rick Styrin comes through and takes the checkered flag. A fantastic result for Rick Styrin. He beats James Coleman in the last race of the year. Garry LAWRENCE gets the victory in front of Kevin Molyneux, with Richard AVERY out of the race on the last lap, promoting Bowden to 5th and Harris to 6th. AVERY, Ludford and Hayes out of the race. David Jones is first in the 924s ahead of Hugh PEART and Gavin Johnson, who lifts the 924 championship. There's the standings. Gavin Johnson 20.5 points clear of Hugh PEART. He is champion in front of David Jones, with Valentine, Ian Gribbin and Gary Campbell rounding out the point standings in the 924s. Gavin Johnson is champion in the 924s and Adam Southgate is champion in the Porsche Boxsters ahead of James Coleman, Garry LAWRENCE, Kevin Molyneux, and rounding out the top 5 is Kevin Ludford. What a season!
Gavin Johnson, 2018 Porsche 924 champion. That's got a nice ring to it, hasn't it?
It certainly has. God, yeah, he made me work for it, this fella. But yeah, I'm absolutely delighted for all the team at PDC. There's so many people to thank, there really is. But that meant a lot. That I'm buzzing. I've never been so happy to come third in my life.
Car doesn't sound very good there, so it's kept it together, kept it on the track.
Yeah, with about 2 laps to go, it just started having a little rattle, and then I wasn't really sure what to do with that, and as long as it was running, I thought I'd try and bring it home. So thankfully it made it to the end. Yeah, we might have some work to do there.
Well, it's been brilliant watching you race all season, particularly against this guy, Hugh. Yeah. You did really well out there, particularly keeping up with David. That was a tough race for you, but just not quite enough, unfortunately. But it brought him down to the wire.
It did. I just had to, I gave it everything I could. I gave it everything. I was absolutely flat out. I thought, well, if I blow it, doesn't matter. So I gave it everything. Wasn't good enough, but Gavin deserves the championship. He's done a brilliant season, so he really deserves that.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
Oh, guys, it's been great watching you race. We look forward to seeing you both out there next year.
Thank you. Yeah, potentially so. Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Great work, guys. Well done. An amazing weekend of racing here at Donington Park, which concludes the 2018 Toyo Tires Porsche Championship. Adam Southgate wrapped up the Boxer title back at Brands Hatch, and Gavin Johnson this weekend has wrapped up the 924 title. Both of them, I'm sure you'll agree, are worthy and deserving champions. We hope you can join us again in 2019.